This is Cosmic Conscience, and my name is Alexander, and today I'm talking to Ileana. Welcome, Ileana.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
And this is kind of unexpected for me because I was searching my mind for the people that I want to talk to, and your name popped up, and it wasn't something I was going to do. So I just want to say how I came to this. About, I don't know, 11 years ago, I found out the Michael Ralph material where he describes the 20 and back and his service on Mars. And I spent a year researching that information, and then it resonated with me on many levels, but I didn't know what it was about. So anyway, about 3 or 4 years ago, I started searching again. And basically, I came across Randy Kramer's testimonies, and also, later there was others. And I have to say that, after interview, I talked to Tony Rodriguez recently. I think it was a month ago, and Randy Kramer as well. But with your testimony, I have to, make a confession here that I went from believing you partly to doubting your story altogether, because even after hearing all of that testimony before, it felt really, I wasn't ready for that, let's say that. And then I moved to believing you entirely. So today I'm openly saying that I believe all that you're saying 100%. But with that being said, what I want to do today is, of course, I want to give you the floor and present your story as you want to do it, but at the same time, I'm going to, because this is going to be for the viewer's sake, so I'm going to ask you a lot of how do you know questions, like how do you know this happened, and how do you know that happened. And that's not because I want to catch you or say, okay, because you're just stating that maybe this is some made up stuff. What I want to do is I want to ask you, how do you know about this and that when you state a fact? And that's how we know what you're basing your testimony on, your memories on, and whatever that basis is, I want to hear it. So because people, very often I feel what happens with so many whistleblowers is that this experience is so native, it's so inherent in them, and when they come out, there is a big gap between what you've experienced and what most people out there who will be listening to this have experienced or can't even allow themselves to think about, right? So when someone comes out and says, for example, I lived on Mars for 20 years, that's a bit of a stretch. But then when you say that you had different experiences that were overlapping in time, that's too much for people. But when you start to explaining the science of that, or at least explaining some rationale that you could present, I think people could go in deep and maybe search their heart or their mind for allowing themselves to maybe allow the possibility of that. So that's, with that in mind, let's begin. Okay.
Sure.
So I know that you now live in Canada, but you're originally from the Ukraine.
Yes,
right?
from Kharkov, Ukraine.
Kharkov, Ukraine, okay. And then you moved, I think you were little when you moved with your parents to Israel and then to Canada.
Yeah,
right?
I was 6 years old when I moved to Israel in 1991, and then I moved to Canada in 1993.
93, okay. All right. Okay, so we're gonna just jump right into your story. So I know that your experiences began very early.
Yeah.
And you can just start from there, and maybe also not forgetting to name the years that something happened, and maybe zooming in on some events so we can have a context for them. Just tell how it all went for you.
Yeah, so the story really begins, the memories begin in 1987 when I was 2. I was in Kharkov, Ukraine, which is former Russia. It's now
For Soviet Union.
Soviet Union, yeah. So it began with reptilian abductions when I was 2 in 1987. because I was afraid to sleep by myself in my own bed, in my own crib, in my own room. So I would scream, and I would be taken to underground bases, what turned out in near the Rostov area, which is outside.
Which is Rostov, Russia, right?
Yes, yes. It's outside of Ukraine borders,
Right.
beyond. And the reptilians were in league with the humans, the human military in their underground bases. So they would take kids underground in the underground base, and they would genetically modify the children to ruin their autoimmune system and nervous system by injecting nanotechnology, nanomachines like little even beyond microscopic ones into the bloodstream of the human, like into the arm, here, or into the neck. It could be anywhere. And then what it does is slowly goes into the bloodstream and goes into the organs, and it basically destroys the organics of the body. And it's
just all right. I'm going to stop you there and ask you 3 how do you know questions again.
Sure.
The first one is, how do you know it was Rostov that you were taken to? The area under Rostov, right?
From mapping it out, because last year what I did, I sat down and I went through these memories of the reptilian abductions, and I got an exact location on a map where the space was, and I was able to describe what exactly the reptilians did to me. So it's coordinates, and it's been published on the internet on my YouTube channel. So I have a set of coordinates where that was.
But what is your process for saying locating something on a map? Because this is very interesting and very important.
Okay. I am a Native American trained shaman. So I learned to do past life regression. I learned to do memory retrieval. And I learned basic hypnosis as well to combine that with the past life. So basically, I put myself into light regression, and I look at the memories that I have of all of these events where I've been. And I had a clear set of coordinates, and I took the trouble to learn Google Earth because I had no idea how to use Google Earth. So I sat there for weeks learning Google Earth and how to put these coordinates in, and then how to add word descriptions of what the experience was. Not just the set of coordinates, but what the reptilians did to me, like, in a blurb on the map.
So basically, if you only had your memories without the shaman training that you had and life regression, you couldn't. You wouldn't be able to locate that, right? Because you were very little.
I'm not sure. Maybe I could, because I am psychic. I have intuitive psychic abilities, so maybe I could. But
and without the psychic part, purely on that.
I have photographic memory, so probably I could. But the thing is, the shamanic training teaches you how to remove the traumatic experience of the memory of the event itself, so you don't feel traumatized when you're looking back at these memories of what happened to you. And I couldn't sleep on my own in my own crib, in my own room. I slept with my grandma and grandpa in their bed, in the middle of their bed, because I didn't want to be kidnapped by the reptilians at night. They lock in on your on your DNA structure. They lock in onto you, and they can beam you up anywhere they want.
Okay. All right. So next, the question, how do you know that? Number 2 is, what was the language that those military people spoke on that underground base under Rostov?
I never spoke to the military personnel. I only dealt with the reptilians.
And I phrased the question in the way that, not to point to directly to, what people that was. Okay. All right. So you don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
And you couldn't remember any interaction with them or between them.
I only remember the interaction with the reptilians, the Sharab Invictus reptilians. They look green, yellow, and the black Drowser reptilians. And I actually have a PowerPoint presentation where I looked through my memories, right? And then I went and found images on the internet of what these reptilians look like, because I'm a visual person. And when I describe my experiences, I need images of what these things looked like, because they're not humans. So, and I never dealt with the human personnel on the base. I was very little. I was always let in where the reptilians would do their experiments on me. Then I'd be beamed back home and I would be screaming in terror.
Okay. And number three, what was their reason for putting those, you said there were like nanites, but they're actually really smaller than that, right?
Yeah.
Several times smaller than nanites. I know that you said that was to ruin the nervous system and the immune system, but what is the ultimate goal? I mean, why would they pick up someone from the population and kidnap them and do this stuff to them?
The ultimate goal was to kill me, so I would not grow up and I would not remember my Star Traveler memories that I'm an inbound ET spirit that's here on Earth for a reason. So I wouldn't remember that. Because I don't.
So they wanted to biologically remove you, basically. Whatever your soul wanted at that point wasn't, relevant to them. They just wanted to kill you.
Yes,
and,
yes.
get rid of you.
But my soul.
But why couldn't they do it directly? I mean, why did they have to go to this, very complicated technological thing to do it?
Because I'm a complicated soul. They can't just directly kill me. There's natural laws of non-interference, and if you directly kill somebody, there's repercussions with that. So it had to be very subtle and very unnoticeable.
So basically that would mean they kind of sabotage your biology there, but let those tendencies continue, so that maybe if you take the wrong path in your life, or you do something wrong, or you kind of worsen the effect, you could basically kill yourself, but they would help along the way with that technology.
Yes,
right?
yeah. Okay. And these nanites are not easy to remove from the body at all. You have to have the will to survive to actually do it. And your health is basically ruined for the rest of your life. You're not the same person that you were born.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that continued for, I mean, you've been abducted for several months or years at that time, right?
From 2 to 10.
From 2 to 10.
Yes.
But by the same group of the reptilians.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it went on from Ukraine to Israel to to a little bit of Canada.
So that would mean that they had a pretty tight surveillance on you throughout, basically, and they knew where you were coming from and where you were going.
Yeah.
And tracking you all around the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had 36,000 of these nanites in my bloodstream and in my body.
And that number you got from?
I actually contacted some of my shamanic friends, other healers, and they did a body scan, like a medical intuitive scan on me, and one of them told me that it was 36,000 nanites.
You had the number, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So is there any kind of cure known to men right now? I mean, maybe on Earth or off Earth, maybe, to remove them, without any effect, and heal the body completely?
Psychic surgery, something that Eric Rains does. He does implant removal, and he energetically also removes other parasites and technology that is interfering with your bodily functions and your soul mission, your soul essence. And I had that done for me shamanically, but I went a step further, because shamanically it worked partway with energy healing, but they kept replicating, unfortunately, and they were replicating in my uterus. So I had my uterus removed, like I had surgery. Because
and you decided to do that on your own, or you were recommended by a doctor, maybe, I don't know, or maybe by someone who was doing this psychic procedures on you as well?
I decided to do it on my own because I was also bleeding out. my hormones were not working properly because of the nanites, because it ruins your autoimmune system, it ruins your endocrine system, it ruins your nervous system. So basically, they kept on replicating, and the energy healing did work partially, but the things were replicating in my uterus. So, and I was bleeding out heavily. And I decided, enough is enough. I feel like I'm going to die. And I went to a doctor and they told me, yeah, because you're losing a lot of blood. If you don't do something, eventually you will die. But they didn't want to do a hysterectomy because I was not old enough. So I had to wait 4 years until I was 29 to get it done.
All right. So the medical interpretation there was that there was a hormonal disorder, their imbalance that they can fix, but there needs to be a surgery done in order to, stop that. Okay.
Yeah. But the thing is, if a hysterectomy basically is done too early to remove the uterus and cervix when you're too young, you can go into premature menopause. So what they said, you need to wait until you're at least 29, 30 to get the surgery done. And I did wait, and I went to another doctor, to a female doctor who was very compassionate and understanding. I had a psychological exam done to determine that I wasn't going to do any harm to myself, that I didn't really want children, and that my family life was stable. And once all of that was proven, and I wrote that all in a letter of consent, that I'm an adult, that this is my free will, my free choice, had it signed, and they did laparoscopic total hysterectomy, where they removed my uterus and cervix. I kept my ovaries because I still want my female function. So
but and that was going back to the nanites, which are not really nanites. I think you call there is a document that you sent to me. They're called femtites.
Yes,
right?
femtites, because.
And I tried to search the word on Google, and it didn't come up with anything. So that's probably something that's still in the shadow technology realm, right?
Yeah, there is actually there is a technological forum that talks about them. They're self-aware, replicating bio-living technology, basically, is what it is. It does not need outside energy to function on its own.
Okay.
But we humans call it nanotechnology, nano machines, nanites.
Nanites, although they are the femtites that you were infested in, were much more advanced, and they were several times smaller than the traditional nanites that we talk about, right?
Yeah, they can't be seen through a microscope.
Right. Therefore, in the medical community, there would be no way to diagnose that.
No, there's. I actually looked into it, and there's nothing, because they're saying that they don't even use nanotechnology yet to cure diseases. That it's just in the testing stages. That's what they officially say to us.
So that's a very sneaky way to basically derail your life there.
Yeah.
But your story didn't end there, so it continued.
Continues.
Right. So let's go on.
Well, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease, about 7 years ago. So in that, basically, this autoimmune disease, the Hashimoto's, it literally eats the particles in my body. It eats living tissue in my body. So even though the nano machinery, femtites, have been removed, the damage has been done.
Right.
So right now, I'm working with various elements like Ethereum Gold, Oramus, Ambaya Gold, and various other elemental products to actually try to stabilize my autoimmune system.
All right.
To fix that.
Okay. So the Draco that abducted you, they did it quite a few times, I guess. So do you have any interaction with them? Did you understand what was going on? Because you went there from 2 to 10, so that was kind of like An introduction, basically. So every time you went to a base, you saw something, right? And
Yeah.
every time there was a procedure, you could remember more and more, I guess. So what could you walk us through maybe a typical something that stands out in your memory, a typical abduction experience? How was that done? How do you wake up? What do you see, and how does it happen?
Yeah, it usually would happen at night, like at 11 until maybe 4 a.m. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
I would be beamed out by a beam of light and from
Mm-hmm.
my bedroom, and I would end up at the bottom of the stairs to the underground facility, and I would
And
see.
you will be fully conscious then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I
As
would
you
be.
were
Yeah,
being beamed up, right?
yeah,
Okay.
and I would see this tall man with gray skin and black hair, grayish black, red hair, and a long beard. He'd take me down the stairs underground.
A
Open.
human or an ET?
He's an ET. He's not human.
Okay.
He'd take
Okay.
me down the stairs underground into the underground facility, open the door, take me down a long corridor that actually had children chained to the walls who were screaming.
Uh-huh.
They had like, just chains with kids hanging like
And what
manacled.
what what exactly what were they doing to those kids?
Oh, those kids were waiting to be also genetically modified and altered. I don't know what they do with them because I was
Uh-huh.
always alone with the reptilians when they genetically modify
Okay.
my DNA.
But there was a hallway where you could actually see those.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I would see the
Okay.
kids screaming
And,
because they were
right.
in pain.
And do you think the screaming was induced to maybe get some hormones out of them, or
No,
some
they were just
some energy, or
no, they were chained with manacles to the walls.
they were just
Yeah, they
okay.
were young children screaming because they're all alone. There's no parents
Right.
there, and they can't
Yeah, of
leave. They're
course.
not free. They're trapped. That's why they were screaming.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
the harvester guy, and I called him the harvester race because he
Uh-huh.
he he would collect DNA samples from me. He wouldn't genetically
Uh-huh.
modify me, but he'd take genetic samples from me
Uh-huh.
after the reptilians modified me. So
Okay.
he'd always walk me down into the long corridor into the laboratory where they would genetically modify me. And what is vivid to me, one time they took me into a room where they had this type of a device with a round circle in it, like a wormhole
Uh-huh.
technology, and it had this
Uh-huh.
liquid thing in it, whitish blue, and they were doing some kind of a time travel experiment with it.
Okay.
And
Uh-huh.
there was some computer stations, there were reptilians sitting at these stations, and this thing blew up. It blew up in my face. So I saw
Uh-huh.
glass shattering, and they unwound time and reversed this explosion because something went
Okay.
wrong. They programmed it the wrong way, and it exploded in my face. The glass should have hit my face because there was some kind of a barrier glass wall,
Okay.
and it exploded, and I was just standing there as a little girl looking at this thing, and it exploded, and then time rewound itself, and they undid the explosion. So
Okay.
that's a vivid memory from an event that stands out the most for me. And apparently something went wrong and the thing exploded.
Uh-huh.
And that's all I really remember from that. And those
Okay.
experiments, I don't really have too many vivid memories of what they did to me every time.
Okay.
So that's what I have in terms of the reptilians and what they looked like and what they did to me. So it's basic.
So they were okay. Okay. So did they communicate to you telepathically? How like okay. Well, basically, what was do you know the nanite procedure as well? Did they inject it with a syringe? Maybe, I don't know.
They had some kind of a black little tubular thing that they would jam into my arm with a
Uh-huh.
needle. It didn't look like a syringe. It looked like a tube,
Okay.
some kind of a metal tube that they'd stick into my
Uh-huh.
arm. And it hurt. It really
Okay.
hurt. They were about
Okay.
pain. It wasn't a decent, painless procedure. It was painful.
Right.
I felt like my blood was burning.
Okay.
So it was not a pleasant experience to have.
Right. And at what point did you see humans there?
I saw a few humans when the explosion happened of the whatever wormhole time travel arc that they were working on. There was human personnel running around
Okay.
the reptilians
Okay.
seated in the chairs, whatever they were doing. I saw a few human personnel, but I didn't hear any what they were. They were yelling like, "It went wrong. This is horrible. It went wrong. Fix it now before it happens
Uh-huh.
again." That's all I heard. And then they
Wow.
rewound time, and it was back to seeing that portal arc, whatever it was.
Okay.
And then I was taken out of the room. I don't know why I was put into the room to see that. Like, what was the purpose? They didn't take me through the arc. I think it was a portal of some type to take you somewhere else, but they didn't take me through the portal. So I don't know
Okay.
what the exact
Did
function
you
was.
did you try to I don't know, scream, demand, ask questions, resist, whatever?
Not really, not when I was a young child. I was a kid. I was just, whatever they were doing to me. I
Okay.
didn't really resist because I felt helpless. So when I was young,
Okay.
I
Was
didn't
there
resist.
any interaction, I mean, telepathically or verbally from you or to you? Did they say anything? Did you ask anything
No,
at any point?
no, I never asked them anything. I just,
So it was always done in silence,
yes,
basically.
yeah, yeah. I
Wow.
just remember myself as a witness looking back at this
Okay, I
from
see.
looking back at the flash memories of these events.
Uh-huh.
Me being a young, helpless child, them doing this to me, and, me not resisting because I really didn't
Uh-huh.
understand what they were doing to me.
Okay. Wow. And after each incident, you would be beamed back into your room, right?
Yeah, I would be,
Into your parents' room then.
no, into my own room because
Into your own
I
room.
didn't
Okay,
sleep with
okay.
my parents. I had my own room. I just,
Okay.
I just be beamed back into my crib, and
Uh-huh.
sometimes I wouldn't be in my crib. I'd be under my crib.
Okay, you'd be under the bed,
Yeah,
basically. Okay.
my mom would find me under the bed, and I had peed from being scared.
Mm.
She's like, "What happened to you? Like, you're two. You're not supposed to pee in your
Right.
pants."
And then after, as you were growing, I guess by the time you were 10, you were pretty much, self-aware, I guess. So did you remember anything and tell your parents
No,
or
I didn't remember anything at 10. I
okay.
remember these memories are from 2 years ago. Yeah,
Right.
when I was
Okay.
a small kid, I did talk about aliens and that I knew other
Uh,
civilizations to my grandma. I told that to my grandma, not my
uh,
parents. And my grandma's like, "This girl knows weird things that nobody else really
uh.
knows in this family." So I only told my grandma some weird
Okay,
things
so
about knowing aliens.
okay. At that time they would blank slate you or do something
Yeah,
that you
yeah. No, I
wouldn't
wouldn't.
remember a thing.
No,
Wow.
no, not when you're
Okay.
that small. I did
Um,
tell grandma that I remember seeing weird aliens and that they're
uh-huh.
real. So,
Okay. So after that, what happened? After the abductions, I guess, continued up until you were 10. That
yeah,
would be even in during your time in Canada, right? You
yeah,
said that you
yeah,
moved to Canada in 1993. That
yeah,
means, okay, so that was okay.
yeah.
So, okay.
And then when I was 12, I remember basically being taken somewhere into the woods and being
Uh-huh.
drowned. Now, this was by humans.
Okay.
And from memory, it's Monarch Solutions. They just basically
Uh-huh.
take me somewhere behind a cabin in the woods and they constantly drown me to see how much pain I could take and if I could survive breathing underwater. So it was like
So
endurance.
they were fully aware. I mean, whoever those humans were, they were fully in contact with those beings, I guess,
No,
and they
they weren't.
continued the
They weren't in contact with the reptilians. This was after
okay.
the reptilian abduction stopped.
Uh-huh. But you somehow appeared on their radar. They somehow can track people with those attributes, right?
Yeah, if your genetics are ET
Uh-huh.
bound, like if you're not an Earth soul, they can track you. They always have an interest in you and they'll track you.
Right. So
So,
what you're saying is the reptilian part of that was separate from what happened
yes,
later to
yeah,
you in the
yeah,
secret space program. Okay.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Okay. That, as far as you know, right?
it's separate. And there was
Okay.
four men who would
Uh-huh.
do the drowning, and they constantly wanted to see how I would like bypass the pain factor and just not feel the
Okay.
pain and the trauma, and to see my endurance levels. That was in Canada.
Uh-huh.
Prior to that, the memory is very vague. It's of a
Uh-huh.
scientist doing something, giving me drugs to alter my brain to make sure
Uh-huh.
both hemispheres of the brain functioned the same. Because we have the left
Right.
hemisphere and the right, and they function differently. So they wanted
Uh-huh.
it all the same to try,
Synced it.
yeah, to sync
Uh-huh.
it to make a supercomputer out of my head.
Right.
That's what the scientist was doing, and then
The file, I'm just gonna backtrack a little bit.
yeah.
The file that you sent to me says that you basically during the time in Ukraine you had participated in an experimental group there with there was even the name of the guy who was leading that. Do you remember any of that?
I don't really remember. It's very vague
Okay.
memories. Like I
Okay.
said, it's
Yeah.
very vague memories. Um,
But would it be right to assume that the person who was doing that, above ground to you was connected to those underground bases, and they were this was kind of the same program,
Perhaps it's hard to
perhaps. Okay.
tell. Like if
But you don't know.
I
Okay.
really don't know the
Okay.
vivid memories are of the scientist in Israel experimenting on my brain. I
Right.
believe it was Alvin Topher.
Uh-huh.
That
And how would they would also somehow track you there? How would you even get, I mean, how would a child get into such a group? Were you tested before? Did you
no.
maybe, exhibit any kind of special skills or something?
What my great great grandmother had was off the charts psychic abilities.
Uh-huh.
People would used to
Obviously.
people would used to come to
Right.
her in the village and ask her
Uh-huh.
to do tea leaf readings to see what would
Uh-huh.
happen in the near future to them, or to get
Right.
advice about something. And it always, whatever she saw, it always happened the way she saw it and described
Right.
it to them. So her psychic abilities were innate, and my mother
Uh-huh.
also has intuitive ability, although she doesn't practice
Right.
it.
Okay.
So I think it's genetic lineage, family lineage, and they probably have records of it. And that's how they could track you, because they
They
keep
can track you.
records of family lineages.
It's so interesting. I mean, this is so out of the everyday context that you see. You go wherever you go to work, you go to you watch television, you talk to people. I mean, you talk to doctors, you talk to scientific people.
Yeah.
You go to universities, and you interact with a lot of people who are maybe even in the military or even in the intelligence community. You bring something like that up, and they have no clue, basically, right?
No, because
Many of them,
they live in their 3D world.
right?
They believe basic concepts of life. You are here to be born, to grow up, to learn, to get a job, and to be a productive member of society, to marry, to
That's
have a
true.
family, to get a house, make sure your kids grow up well, make sure they, go to school, they get a job, they get married, and so on and so forth. And the cycle is perpetuated.
That's true. But that may be even, beneficial and makes sense to most souls and most people, right? But not everybody, as it turns out. And also, what I was actually referring to is that no one seems to know about these things, but yet you and people like you come out and say this, and we people who are into this kind of stuff, we know all these links and all the breadcrumbs that were left, by others. So someone was doing that stuff on you
Yeah.
when you were in the Ukraine, in the Soviet Union. Someone was doing that stuff and knew what they were doing when you
Yeah.
were in Israel, and
Yeah.
when you went to Canada, the same thing happened. And maybe they were tracking you on the same database, or maybe they were separate, but they could track you. So
Yeah.
there was someone who knew about
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
all the way.
Yeah. And
Right?
people often tell me, I saw you in my dreams. You were there. We were on some type of a mission. Other SSP experiencers, secret space
Okay.
program experiencers. And then I do an internet search and I find images of them that look eerily similar. Some other artist drew them without knowing these
Hmm.
people. I'm like, okay, I better save these pictures because these people look eerily familiar. But
Well, that's another interesting piece of your story, that you actually go out. I'll just say this for the people who
yeah,
listen because they probably not understand. You actually go out on Google and you intuitively search for images that you have as memories in your head, and then you find them as artwork online, which could be, two things. Either someone is intuitively channeling them and then, creating that artwork, or they were also experiencers and saw that somehow.
yeah,
Or maybe you would, psychically create them beforehand, and then when you go on Google, they're there, but you actually created them beforehand. That could be a third
yeah.
possibility.
But then I might have known those artists through other programs or something.
Okay.
Because I only have basic skills, like I know how to use graphics programs and put images together and do, graphic collages, or
Right.
even do a, like, for example, I could take a picture of the moon and there's an orb in it. But I need to say, hey, you could see cloaked reptilian ships. And
Hmm.
I'd plunk a reptilian ship as an example. That's a video that's going to come out that I was talking about
Okay.
cloaking and ETs. So I know how to put like images into a picture, and
Hmm.
I know how to do
Okay.
backgrounds and stuff like that. I don't know how
Okay.
to graphically draw something. So
And you're actually walking on thin ice here, because I can hear people say, okay, this is obvious. She is just searching for pictures, and then she's putting those pictures on presentations and saying, now this is my memory. And I could, find dragon pictures and say I saw dragons and stuff like that. But you're no, but what you're doing is basically saying it as it is.
yeah,
That's what I remember, and
yeah,
this is a depiction of
yeah.
that. And,
And I always say these aren't my images. I never drew them. They're from
right,
the internet. I don't have
right,
copyrights to them, and I don't do this for material gain. I do this
right,
purely as reference to show
right.
likenesses of what I saw in my
No,
memories of events.
and right. And one of the reasons why I actually finally decided to talk to you is because I realized that this wasn't about, because I've been sitting on a fence for
Hmm.
a while without realizing it.
Yeah.
When after talking to a couple of people and after researching on my own and internalizing all that, I still had been sitting on a fence with things that could or could not be proven. So for me, it would be, if a story is more or less legitimate in, some kind of context, physical mind, 3D mind context, I would explore it, and deem it as, worthy of being published.
Yep.
And then with your story, all of that just goes out the window, right? I mean, all of that just
Yeah.
goes
Well,
completely out.
yeah, because
You basically break every rule of, 3D logical rationale that has to be built up
yeah,
so people can believe you. You basically just throw it out and say, this is what I remember.
yeah,
I use whatever props I can get to, to just throw it out there. And if you don't like it, okay. But that's what I remember. And
yeah.
that's very brave, I think.
I really don't
Very
care.
authentic.
Yeah, I really
Yeah,
don't care what other people think of me. If you want, like, if you look at this stuff, if you think I'm completely bonkers, whatnot, it's your decision. I put out what
right,
I remember, how I remember it. I am not a 3D or a 4D or 5D artist, and I don't have a lot of money to hire artists to depict the
right.
artwork. And to tell you the truth, I've tried working with some artists and they could never get my descriptions correctly to the point where I felt satisfied with the artwork. So I just
True.
find what really represents what I've seen and I
Right.
explain it.
But what I'm saying is that you basically you cut no slack for the people that may, wonder about it and say, okay, this girl sounds believable. I'm going to believe her, but this girl doesn't sound believable, so I'm not going to believe her. You don't really care. You
No.
just basically throw it out there.
Yeah, to each their own. It's a free will universe. Use your
Right.
discernment. Use it's your free will to believe or not believe what I say.
Right.
I really don't care. And when I was talking to you, I asked you not to use my last name in your title of this interview
Okay.
because it's not about my name. It's not really about being
Right.
seen on the internet and people being able to find this interview by my name. The
Right.
information is what it is. The story is what it is. I'm not out to make money. I'm not out to make myself famous. I really don't care about any of that.
Yeah, I'd have to just tell our viewers that I've been trying before we uh, d decided to do the interview to convince Ileana of using her real name, actually her Russian name that she acquired when she was born, because for me this was not only was, I felt a connectedness with, the area where I live in, which is Russia and Ukraine also. But also that was my part of my fence sitting, I was, thinking, okay, maybe this would just a name would probably add more credibility and, a name and an attachment to a place and nationality. But now I realize, whatever you tell people who are not ready will not stick. They will just, it will just, bump off them. But those who are ready, not to believe it, but resonate with it, that's the thing, it's not about that kind of stuff you can't fit into an everyday context, everyday, education of people that they have now. So it's either you resonate with that and you go and explore,
Yeah.
or your mind just rejects it
Yeah.
altogether. There is no other way. I mean, you can't just say, okay, let's do a logical analysis of her story and study all her interviews, and then maybe we can have a coherent basis where we can say, okay, this person must be telling the truth. That doesn't really happen. And I found that people, things that I've already integrated and believed in and saw as absolutely fact would just bump off others. They would just bounce off people and say, they would just completely dismiss it, say, this is crap. And I'm like, okay, but I know this is true. This must be true because that is true, but they don't have that context and they don't resonate. So.
And it's not really about it being the truth or not being the truth. When people are ready to investigate something and figure something out, they will. And they still might not totally believe it's the truth. I don't care if you believe me or not. This is not about me trying to convince anybody that this really happened to me. I'm just sharing what happened to me, what I know, what I experienced. That's all I'm doing. I don't care whether somebody believes me or not. It's not about that at all. It just happened. And I try to get in touch with other people, secret space program experiencers, and let them tell their story because I've interviewed other people. I've been interviewed. So to me, it's about the human experience that goes beyond logic.
Right.
And I believe them. Because it just resonates to me as this happened to these people. And I could tell if somebody's lying to me and giving me a bunch of phony baloney, if sometimes it just sounds too real to be real. It sounds like a fake made up story, even though it might be out there crazy. I could sense the person is lying. So I just say, sorry, I'm not interested. Go to somebody else for an interview. It just doesn't feel right to me. And I'll pass on the interview, even though the person might be somebody, who's famous in the ufology scene, who's done a bunch of interviews. If it sounds wrong to me, I'll pass on them. That's how it is.
Right. Okay. So you also have the right to basically dismiss stories and testimonies, right?
Yeah, just like anybody else, because I don't want to do a disservice to whoever listens to these things. If it feels wrong to me, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do interviews.
Right. Okay, so basically you were born in 1985, right?
Yes.
from the age of 2, basically from 1987, you had been abducted by what you remember as a reptilian faction.
Two reptilian factions.
Two reptilian factions that were taking you to underground bases, first in Russia under the Rostov area of that city, and then later from the age of 2, and then later when you moved to Israel with your parents, and then to Canada, those abductions continued for a while, and then in 1993 they basically left you alone. But then from 1995, something else continued, and you called them. There were that was a human program, and you called them Monarch Solutions. And Monarch is, of course, the famous MK Ultra derivative program, which is has the same name, and probably that's what they were doing. And that is an official company that exists. You can find it online.
Yeah.
What is their official statement of mission? I mean,
there's a company called Monarch Solutions, and they make software development products.
Okay.
And aerospace stuff. That's what it says.
Aerospace. Okay, that there's a connection there. Okay.
Well, if it's that company, that's the thing. It's hard to prove what company it is. There's one company named Monarch Solutions, and there's also.
But you said that they were Monarch Solutions. Did you know then, or was it just a recent thing that you found out?
Well, the thing
that
is,
they were from that.
The thing is, I'm not sure if the company that's on the internet, Monarch Solutions, if it's that group. I never gave a website link to that company because I don't want to make a mistake. If it's not that Monarch Solutions, I could get in trouble. So
But as you were going through that, did you hear that name Monarch Solutions from them, or did you just? How did you come up with this name now? I mean,
it was just in my memory. And I'm like looking around on the internet. And there's a few things I found on the internet. A company named Monarch Solutions that makes software products and makes also something for aerospace industry. There's also, this was interesting, Monarch Solutions in a video game, in a Microsoft video game, Quantum Break. Which was, Paul Sarin ran Monarch Solutions in this video game, and they made a TV series out of it. Microsoft actually got sci-fi writers to make this 4-episode series in this video game. And Paul Sarin was working on CERN technology for time traveling. And his company was called Monarch Solutions.
Okay. And that's in the miniseries, right?
That's in the miniseries and in the video game that was in the 2000s. So it's very interesting stuff, like what you have in your head and what you find on the internet. I'm like, So Microsoft did this video game and also did this miniseries. Like, so what is Microsoft disclosing to us? And what does it have to do with me? And why? Like, why do I have Monarch Solutions in my head? This program was called Monarch Solutions. I'm not saying necessarily it's the company who makes the software and, does something with the aerospace industry, but it could be because I don't have any physical proof, like the paperwork to track it. I have memories and I have a transcript of, the dates and the timeline. That's all I really have.
Okay. All right. So they were doing this basically endurance / mind splitting procedures on you, right? Basically, on the one hand, testing your endurance levels, and on the other hand, probably trying to split your mind or seeing if they could split your mind doing that, right? Okay. Yeah. And what happened after that?
Actually, I was taken to two underground bases near somewhere Sierra Madre Mountains, and what did I see? I saw too many CERNs working on time travel technology, ironically.
That is again where?
The Sierra Madre Mountains. It's
Sierra Mountains. Where is it in Canada?
No, that's the U.S. It's near the border of Mexico and Texas, actually.
Okay, yes. Okay, Mexico. Okay, I see.
So
you were taken there. What year? Do you remember the year?
It was, I believe, in the 90s. It was
Okay,
before 2000s.
before 2000. All
Yeah.
right.
So basically, when I was taken to those bases, I observed
Mm-hmm.
them working on time travel technology with two mini CERN Hadron Colliders. So there's
Minis. Okay.
mini, yeah, they're smaller
Hmm.
than the huge Hadron
Right,
Collider
the one in Europe. Okay.
in Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were interested in time travel technology, and also they had young teenagers actually open portals, natural portals
Hmm.
with their head. And that's what they had me doing.
Okay, that was your primary
Yeah.
assignment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just telepathically open the portal. You're given instructions. At this certain time, you are to open this portal. You are to maintain this portal telepathically, and you are to go through this portal and keep it stable until you end up on
Hmm.
the other side, wherever that was, the coordinates that you
Hmm.
had in your head.
Okay. But at that time you were already teenagers,
Yeah.
so and they were humans,
Yes.
so there was a bit of interaction going on, I
Yeah.
assume,
Yeah.
right?
The instructions were you are to open this natural portal and you are to maintain it. You are to go through this portal, keep it steady, and that is your assignment. And then afterwards, they'd debrief you. Well, how did you do this in your head? They
Hmm.
have technology where they could put electrodes on in your
Sure.
head to actually review your memories of how you did this. Because
Okay, okay, so
what they wanted was to improve their technology, their CERN technology,
okay.
and they needed this telemetry from the psychic kids that they were taking.
Okay, they were using the natural
Yeah.
processes to basically track and create their own algorithms for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
That's what they wanted.
But was there any like you were taken physically, or did you were you portaled there, or how were you taken?
I don't remember the exact process. I
Okay.
think somehow through portal technology they took me
Uh-huh.
because I don't remember being driven
From
in.
your house,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
It was an apartment. It was an apartment in
Uh-huh.
Israel and an apartment in Canada. So
Okay.
I was never driven somewhere. I was never driven to the airport and then went on a plane somewhere. I think it was portal technology that beamed me up
Uh-huh.
because they were working with CERN technology and time travel. So
Okay.
I think they have the ability to teleport people.
Yeah, and for those people who may, question or wonder about what this portal business is all about, because I talked to Randy Kramer and Tony Rodriguez before, and Tony Rodriguez basically said that he was every time they would take him, he would be portal out of his room, and that's one of the things that people may struggle with. So, just as a reference, I could say that Andrew Basiago states and has been saying, that the U.S. government, at least the secret part of the government, achieved technological, portal technology, teleportation technology, and time travel technology by 1970. That is his official date that he gives. So from 1970, and he teleported way before that. He teleported like in 67, 68 with his father. That's what he remembers as being, the first child to teleport.
The
So
jump
by the
rooms.
time the jump rooms, and also he would teleport from one place to another, in the country, inside, the United States. So, and after that, for him, it was a daily assignment as he was on these teams with other kids to jump from one place to another in the country, and they would, do all kinds of experiments and research on how that works. And basically, by 1970, that technology was already fully operational. So when you talk about something being done, or Randy or others talking about something of similar nature being done in the 80s and 90s, you could assume that, by that time, this was a daily routine for them to do this stuff. It's just it wasn't out in the public, but they could easily, land anywhere they wanted, probably in time and space, like,
Yeah.
and take anyone, grab anyone, and then return them back at the time that they choose and the place that they choose.
Yeah.
So that's something that,
I mean, and it's in
yeah,
shows like Stargate SG-1 where there's portal technology that you traveled
right.
through. It's in Star Trek, various series of Star Trek where you have this basically a teleporter room, right? You go into it, they have your DNA sequence on file. You stand on the teleporting pad, they beam you up somewhere, beam you down somewhere, and then when you're ready to go back, you hit your tricorder and you say, beam me up, and they lock onto your DNA and beam you back up on the ship or installation, whatever, just as examples. And in SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis, it's portal technology that creates a wormhole, and you go in through it and you come out on the other side. So these concepts, it's not like these concepts are not familiar to general public, because I'm sure.
those have been leaked a long time ago.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and when we talk about portal technology, that's a vortal kind of like wormhole technology, not quantum, when you're basically supposed to be disassembled and then reassembled back as you arrive, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's also natural portal technology where you could psychically open a portal in space and time and go somewhere with your own telepathy in your own mind.
With your own thought.
Yeah.
Which is what we are supposed to do, or are supposed to do in the future anyway, to be able to do that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were taken to those bases in Sierra Mountains.
Madre. Not Sierra Mountains, Sierra Madre Mountains, because
Madre.
Yeah, the Sierras are between Canada and in California and Nevada.
That's why I asked you.
Yeah,
right.
it was the Sierra Madre Mountains. So it's like more New Mexico-ish, Texas area, but not in that exact area. Kind of like Gulf.
Yeah, I'll
Gulf of Mexico. Well, I have it on the maps, because I have those locations mapped.
Cool. Yeah, and after that, how did you enter, the secret space program?
That was in 2000. I remember working with a group of Nordics.
Okay.
The tall blondes. Yeah, I remember there were reptilian armada ships that they were about to invade Earth and Mars. So I was put on the Nordic ships by the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. I was given to the Nordics to liaise with, as being a communication liaison for the Nordics, to track where the reptilian ships, the rogue ships, were going, to make sure they didn't land on Earth or Mars, the stragglers. So that's a vivid memory of being in this, of being loaned out to ETs.
And you just remember being there like that, or do you remember the procedure of being, taken, processed, stuff like that?
I remember my first memory is of being given to ETs by the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, being loaned out, because I'm good with languages and communication, being loaned out to the ETs. That's the most clearest memory I have, the first thing I remembered. And then after that, I remember the basis on Mars and the Lunar Operations Command. I'm sure it didn't happen in that order of sequence of events, but I remember the ETs. I remember the blue-gray uniforms, of being given this form-fitting jumpsuit, either gray or blue, and doing communications and tracking these reptilian ships from the Nordic ships. So that's the first thing I remembered.
Okay. So basically, just to create a timeline for people, 2000 is when you think you were taken.
Yes.
And 2014 is the year that you think all your service ended.
Yes.
Right? So that was 14 years of service, but you are actually saying that they used you for 60 years.
Yes.
Which would make it, 4 times or over 4 times of quantum dilation.
Yes. Yeah.
Years, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what they can do with time,
with
time travel technology, they can alter timelines to change the sequence of events, how long it is. On Earth, it seems like it's 4 or 5 years. On Mars, it seems like it's 20 years. Somehow they can do dilation of time and make it any sequence of time they want.
Okay.
So it doesn't,
So they can lengthen the
yeah.
time, or they can shorten it as they
Yeah,
wish.
and it
Okay.
doesn't fit into the logical sequence of events of how old I am, because I'm 32. And so how
Uh-huh.
the normal person would ask, so how can you have done 60 years in a time
Right, right.
travel, quantum leap time travel program when you're only 32? And I say it's quantum leap. It goes beyond
Uh-huh.
quantum mechanics.
So basically, what could happen is, I mean, just as an example, is every time you finish your work day, they could time travel you back to the morning time of the same day for the whole 10 years, and
Yeah,
you would not even move in time. While doing the 10 years of service, you would be staying in one time
yeah,
point,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
because for them it's
Yeah.
easy to flip time.
Right. So what we're actually saying here is all those people who do the 20 and back and maybe 60 and back have been doing that within maybe a short, 20 years or less period, and they actually gained hundreds of years of service from those people by using that technology.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Because otherwise, how else could they do it? I can't explain. How can you do a 60 and back and end up in a 30, like, and be 32 years right now? I'm not 60.
Right. But the number 60 is what you heard or what you came up when adding all that stuff together?
Or,
How did you come up with the 60
originally,
years?
it was 50, but then I remembered
Okay,
they tacked
right. And
on 10 more
yeah,
years on Mars.
right. But how did you come up with the 50 number?
Just
How did you know, for example, these were the
doing the hypnosis regression on myself, and I can
uh
induce it myself. And just
uh-huh.
like, what was the first job I did with the interplanetary corporate conglomerate? It was
Okay.
linguistics, dealing with
Uh-huh.
different ET species. They'd alter me genetically and physically, so I'd look like a humanoid ET, and they'd put me into a conference, so I'd do linguistics work.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
since you touched upon that, let's do it because yeah, we're jumping all over the
yeah,
place, but if you don't mind.
yeah,
You were a linguistics specialist
yeah.
for what group?
Interplanetary corporate conglomerate, ICC.
Which is the space version of the military industrial complex, I guess, right?
Yeah, an
Something like that.
advanced version of
But
it.
a very advanced, okay, the
Yeah,
top level kind
yeah,
of.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And they needed a linguistics specialist to interact with other ET races
Yes.
on what, diplomacy? What kind of mission was it?
Diplomacy, trading, just basic
Okay.
things. But the kicker was those ETs did not want human coming in into that meeting. You had to look like them. You had to
Why?
genetically, like, they just don't want human in. Some species, they just don't want human. They don't want to see the human. Seeing this face would
Uh,
offend them.
I can't stand them, right?
Yeah, well, it would just biologically seeing this would not be pleasant for that
Would be
for
okay.
that
They
ET
would have it like
species.
an adverse reaction.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
they would be offended if they saw this.
Wow.
So they altered me genetically to change my appearance, like height, to change my
Uh-huh.
face. Like, I remember
Okay.
having this light blue skin with black stripes and having this blue white hair and being like 12
Uh-huh.
feet tall. You still look humanoid, but you don't look human.
Right. And that would be for a short period of
Yeah.
doing a short assignment,
Yeah,
right?
you go in for an hour, 2 hours, you record what they're talking about, what they're saying, what they want in
Uh-huh.
the contract for trading, for, diplomacy, whatever it is. And you enter it into the database because they want to study the languages, they want to know how these ETs are as a race. Not just
But
what,
you were there
yeah.
as a secretary or as an active negotiator? What
A
was
little
your
bit of
capacity?
both, a little bit of the secretary recording the linguistic side and a bit of
Recording
negotiation.
with equipment or your photographic
I had Neuralink implants. I had these,
Neuralink?
yeah,
Okay.
biological cyber
Uh-huh.
implants in my head that had like a
Okay.
camera in my eyes, and recording
Right.
everything that's being said and done and seen. And that would be
That's a
then,
kind of a cool system. Huh?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they do that because ICC works with other ETs and gets
Mhm.
advanced technology from them that they could reverse engineer or recreate on their own because they're very smart and they have a lot of
So
engineers.
I'm sorry, as you were going to those conferences, there were no humans there besides you, right?
No,
Except
they won't.
for you.
Yeah.
And did the ETs know that you were an altered human being
Yes.
that was
Yeah. The
okay, but
ter-
they just didn't want to see the form
yeah,
in your face?
the
Wow.
terms were we want this specific look to come in. We know that you're
Uh-huh.
human, but you have to look you have to be willing to have your genetics
Oh, okay.
altered to look like us, to have something that we have, and we'll give you something, that you want. It's a fair
Right.
exchange, but you have to do something before we'll even
Okay.
negotiate with you.
Right.
And if,
It's like a list that you have to follow, a list of requirements to enter.
yeah, like when you go to Japan, you act a certain way as
Right.
to fit into the culture, to blend in. So, you won't do something that's not culturally appropriate. Same with ETs. There's a certain list
Wow.
of criteria that you have to meet with certain ETs just to get into the room, apparently.
Right.
So,
So they knew that you were a human
yeah,
present there,
yeah,
and you could record and do whatever you wanted. And
yeah.
also you had linguistics software installed in you, or you were taught somehow
The,
to speak those languages.
the Neuralink implants would record what they were saying, and I was psychically able to sort of to understand what it was. The Neuralink
Okay.
implants just worked as an amplifier
As an amplifier.
of
Okay.
psychic ability to interpret whatever those guys were saying. And sometimes it was telepathically. They speak to you
Uh-huh.
telepathically in your head. They don't verbalize what they're saying, so it's harder to
Right.
understand their language because it's not verbal,
Yeah. Yeah, I know that Randy Kramer talked about three ways that you could talk to ETs, and he says that one way would be telepathy, which not every human could do. That was strange to me because I thought, that every human could basically communicate back and forth with ETs. And then he said that not everyone was, able to do that. So they would, come up with these amplifiers, and the amplifiers he's describing are basically helmets that people put on. One of the sides would put on, or both parties would put on at a negotiation. And the third one he was describing is probably what you wore, is either psychically or technologically enhanced specialist,
Yes.
Telepathy specialist, who would go in and be present and would act as either an interpreter or something like that. But he also says that there is something in your mind, basically, that your consciousness interprets things naturally. So when we hear about telepathy, we always assume that, maybe in the future when we're able to communicate like that, we will not need translators, because wherever you go, Japan, China, any country, you could probably communicate directly on this, consciousness level. But what you're saying is that you were actually trained or given some languages installed in there
Yeah,
to do it. So how does that work?
So through the Neuralink implants, you were able to access the databases that the groups have, the secret space program groups have. In my case, it was the ICC. So I could access their databases and see if there's any other languages that are similar to what the ETs were telepathically communicating to me, or even saying. Sometimes there's species that verbally say things, and you're like, what the heck is this? And you find something similar in the database, and you translate it, or you ask them to go slower because you don't really get what they're saying.
So some of them would be verbal.
Yeah,
They would verbal. Okay.
Yeah, it really depended on the species, and I never wore a helmet. These were implants with fiber optics, like little gold threads running through my head, inside my brain.
Inside your
Yeah,
brain. Okay.
yeah.
They would install it. Okay.
And you had ocular implants inside your eye, but you couldn't tell. So it's very advanced technology and involved gold.
Okay. All right. So how many languages would you assume are how many languages would you come in contact with during your service there?
I'd say a couple of hundred because it was long
Ballpark,
working hours. After you left that
couple
meeting,
hundred.
whatever you translated and put into the database, you then had to go through and organize into different file sections.
Files,
Yeah,
okay.
what this pertains to, what was this about, what species this is, are they newly here in our galaxy, have they been here before, what do they want, where are they from, blah, blah, blah. It went on and on. Never stopped.
So that was a heavy kind of
Yeah,
work that you had to.
yeah.
Right. Was it at any point any fun? I mean, did you enjoy it at any time, or was it all like coercive and you had to, just do your work and then, have some rest and say, okay, another day of this. Was it fun at all?
I would say it was interesting. And I liked working with different technology. That was fun. The incentive was you give me fun technology to work with, and this is fun for me. If it was painful and degradative, then it wasn't fun. But languages come naturally to me. So I speak fluent Russian and I speak English, so I never lost the language. And I also used to speak Spanish and Hebrew, which I lost because I don't speak it fluently, but I could easily switch off between 4 other languages. So just learning language naturally comes easy to me, and I can mimic accents and dialects. So with Neuralink implants having that amplified, it was really easy to do communications and linguistic work. I saw it as something interesting to do. And I guess you could call it fun, looking like somebody else, not really looking like yourself, like, hey, I'm taller now and I get speak in another language and I get to see a bunch of different ETs, learn about where they come from, their culture, what they want, and what we want in terms of negotiations, because that's interesting. It's like you're off world and you get to go to different places. So maybe that could be considered fun.
But what I was asking, why I was asking this is because when you listen to Randy Kramer, for example, he was in service, so he signed up for it basically, and when he ended up on Mars, whatever that was, he signed a paper back on Earth or on the Moon, and he was there, so he was to do that service. When you talk to people like, for example, Tony Rodriguez, he was a slave, and he was told he was a slave, and he got used to that thought basically, and he was just told what to do. What was your status there? What was your, I don't know, background reason for being, why am I here, what am I doing, am I being made into this kind of slave capacity, or was that a voluntary kind of thing? What was it for you?
I was never told I was a slave. I never signed any papers on Earth. I never was put into official service. I was considered an asset. Somebody who had genetics that they wanted, like from prior ET lifetimes. They knew that I was an ET soul. So that's partially why they wanted me, because I had these psychic abilities and I knew technology, ET-based technology from previous lifetimes. And that just kind of passed over into being an asset, because I could, basically I had access to my ET lifetimes.
Right.
I could.
That's what they wanted.
Yes, they wanted.
But yeah.
I had the knowledge.
Sorry.
I had the knowledge of being an ET, of working with technology. I already had the background knowledge of what they wanted. They didn't.
Right.
Who cares if you're born into a human body? If you have knowledge from other experiences, ET experiences of your lifetimes, they'll take you for that because you have a bit of an edge. You remember, you're ahead of the educational curriculum, so to speak, outside the normal human curriculum. Good enough, they'll take you for that.
But in terms of bureaucracy procedures, do you remember anything, here you are, we are going to sign here for this amount of years, blah, 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 stuff like that?
Yeah, I remember being on the Mars basis, interplanetary Mars basis, interplanetary corporate conglomerate. It's a huge mouthful. 11 bases. I remember 11 bases, the locations. So when you're on these bases, you're assigned a specific task in a specific work group with 11 other people. So there's 12 people in all. You're put into this huge room with 12 bunks in it. So you sleep and eat with those 11 other people in your work group. You are not to have any sexual relations with them. You're not to have a personal relationship with them. They're your workmates. You do everything with them. And you even sleep like in the same room on those bunks, and you eat in the same room. So basically, it doesn't matter. It's co-ed. It was male and female in the same rooms. So you dress and eat and whatnot. And, you know, if you were naked, they wouldn't look at you in a sexual way. They couldn't. Otherwise, if they had those impure thoughts, their Neuralink implant would zap them with electricity. They'd drop on the floor and they'd have a seizure. And they'd have a nosebleed.
Okay, so the sexual component there was basically suppressed by electrocuting, right?
Electric shock in your head.
That would be different from what Randy is talking about, for example, where they basically encouraged sex between your whatever people that you were serving with, just to get your hormones out of the way and just put your mind on. But they were actually suppressing that. Do you think that was obviously that wasn't healthy, but they didn't really care?
No.
Okay. So the linguistics specialist work you did for how many years?
I think that was about 14 years, something like that.
14 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they stuck me in aeronautics, where they had me developing these Neuralink systems for ships. So basically the pilots could interact telepathically with their Neuralink implants from their brain with this Neuralink technology system in the ship. So they could pilot it, navigation, life support systems. So they had me designing these systems, Neuralink systems, in the ships.
Okay. And how were you trained for that? I mean, that is kind of a high-tech stuff.
Yeah, they put me in a lab. They had me learning what the ships would look like, physical build of the ships, how to create the Neuralink system, and how to sync that with the implants. So I was stuck in a lab all day.
So that was, all right, I see. So that was like more of a hardware or a software creation work?
I'd say it's both.
It's both, okay. So you have to understand both, right?
Yeah, you have to understand what the Neuralink implants are, how they work, what's inside your head. You have to understand that component. Since I had those already, you know how that works. So, and it was designed for pilots that pilot these ships. Now, I wasn't a pilot, but because I had the Neuralink implants already, it's kind of, you switch me off. You put me into, you design these systems. Now that's what you're doing. And, whatever, 10, 15 years, that's what you're doing. And then they put you into another field of work. What I fondly remember, and it's not pretty, was the 10 years of being stuck as a cybernetics technician in the labs where they take human body parts and they basically fuse it with cybernetic components, and they make a cyborg out of a human living being. That was.
And you were doing what in that laboratory?
Basically quality control. Make sure the bones are good. Make sure the organs are good. They're viable to be fused with the technology. That's what I was doing. It was disgusting, and I don't know why they stuck me into that role. Whatever assignment you're given for a number of years, that's what you do. You can't say no to it. Can't say no.
Okay.
So
that was the third capacity.
I think, third or fourth. There were a few others, but I'm only sharing the most interesting that I remember out of it. Yeah.
So do you think within every period of like maybe 14, 15, 10 years, they would quantum leap you back and forth so that was within a very relatively short, for example, you had like 14 years of linguistics specialist work, but that was actually cramped into something very, very short, right? Like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, probably, but it felt like 14 years.
It felt like 14 because
Yeah,
that was your 14 years of experience.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I suspect
But
they,
do you remember being jumped back in time, or I don't know, forward in time
I
at any
remember
point?
they gave me a lot of drugs to keep me looking young.
Uh-huh.
To not, they never wanted me to look old. I was always young. Like, for some reason, I wouldn't age. So I don't know why they gave me the drugs to look young all the time. But I was souped up on drugs to keep me preserved as a young woman in my 20s,
So
30s.
basically a long-term age kind of
Yeah.
age regression or age maintenance.
Yes.
But you don't remember any jumping back in time
I
during.
remember the medical pods that they stick you in to age regress you back
Uh-huh,
into, when they put you back between the
uh-huh,
intervals of being in the program, your different assignments. So they have these holographic medical pods where they put a visor on you, on your head, to
uh-huh.
look through all your memories of what you were in the program, what you were doing. If you had any traumatic memories, that would be erased. If you had anything classified, that would be erased. The blank slating. Now,
Uh-huh.
if you'd broken your arm or if you had any scarring, they'd remove all of that
Right.
from your body. And they'd put you to sleep. There was some kind of electrical charge to your body.
Uh-huh.
They'd shock you, and then you'd wake up in your present state on Earth.
Okay. That's what you remember as
Yeah,
your procedure.
yeah,
That
yeah,
would be the final, I guess, the final return procedure that you
yeah,
had to go
yeah.
through.
And if you
Okay.
had any, like, if you were killed somehow, that happens too. You'd be stuck in a regeneration tank with goo,
Right.
with white or green
That,
goo.
but that would be if you were killed shortly after and shortly after you would be, picked up and
Yeah.
put in.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes before the age regression, like if you're really broken, they'd stick you into the regeneration tank first
Uh-huh.
for 3 weeks to fix all the,
3 weeks.
yeah, if you were dying, to regenerate you. Basically, put you back together and then put you
Uh,
in the holographic medical pod to remove scars, to remove, you know, any other imperfections that you didn't have before you were taken.
yeah, but okay, but going back to your femtite infestation thing, do you remember them, maybe discovering that and wanting to remove it, or was their technology not able to do it, or was it irrelevant for them
I
to
think
do
it
it?
was irrelevant for them. They never removed that.
Okay.
They just kept me looking young and healthy. They kept giving me drugs to keep me healthy and young. I think that's what they were doing as maintenance to probably suppress the nanotechnology.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
That's my best guess because they never
That was a
removed it.
temporary.
I,
Right.
yeah. So
Hmm.
that's what I remember. And like I found images of what this holographic medical pods look like and what they do. And that was a controversial thing when I
Hmm.
published it. And people are like, you're off, you're crazy and you're on meds. I'm like, no, I'm not.
So that what you're describing is actually much more, I would say, more advanced than what others are describing, which would be logical, I guess, because it was done in 2000s. So if, Randy Kramer is talking about his 80s and 90s experience with those regenerative med beds, he would be talking about something more like a holographic projection type stuff.
Yeah,
And probably they had other stuff, I don't know, but
yeah,
that's what he's describing
yeah.
again and again. So, but you were actually, those were tanks that you were introduced to, right? Those were
Tanks
tanks, and
and the
either
medical.
vertical
Yeah,
tanks or horizontal. Where
yeah, it's with me. It was a vertical and the medical holographic pods.
uh,
They also have
okay.
portable Meditech units. So if you were,
Uh-huh.
injured on the way and you lost too much blood and you're
Right.
just dying, they'll stick you into this medical unit. It's like a
Uh-huh.
stasis pod, but it also has medical technology on it, lasers and stuff, so it could patch you up somewhat on
Right.
your way to the bigger medical pod, holographic medical pod that will totally regenerate you. So they have portable medical I call them Meditech units.
Uh-huh.
I can't just call it
So,
medical unit, so I just call it a Meditech unit.
uh-huh.
I remember
Yeah,
that.
cool. The things that we didn't touch is the places that you were stationed at. You said that you were on 11 bases on Mars,
Hmm.
in the SSP. And any other places or ships maybe that,
The moon, Lunar Operations Command, in
uh-huh.
a large crater.
Oh,
It's closer to the dark side of the moon. They have
uh-huh.
also
Yeah.
mining operations going on there and landing ports.
What?
Landing,
Landing
yeah,
ports.
landing
Okay.
ports for the ships.
Yeah.
So, and they have underground military facilities and laboratories, the more classified stuff. They usually
Uh-huh.
like to stick it underground on Mars and the moon.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, so I don't go wandering around sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, basically.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So the moon, Mars, and that's it.
Oh,
Those are two places.
I remember Pluto as well. They had a
Uh-huh.
facility. If you ever watched X-Men, you know that
Uh-huh.
device Cerebro? They stuck me in
Uh-huh.
something like that where I could see the past, the future, and the present somewhat. And it revolved around a Nordic slash reptilian hybrid. She's in charge of that program, and they,
Uh-huh.
for some reason, I ended up there. But I wasn't in the secret space program, like as an asset anymore. That happened
Okay.
last year. That they took me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they took
So
me.
so they took you and activated you for a while.
Yeah, yeah, and I had done a channeling session of my higher self with Carl Mollison,
Uh-huh.
and it was very interesting. What we discovered in that is that I was mainly taken into the SSP program to be an assassin.
Really?
Yeah, although I don't remember
Okay.
killing people. I remember that.
You don't remember anything.
I
Okay.
remember the
Okay.
extensive training with the lasers and phasers and the swords. I remember that.
Uh-huh.
And I actually have swords, guns, knives. I
Yeah.
have a whole arsenal of.
Yeah, I know you talked about that when your memories came back.
Yeah.
You basically showed an interest in weaponry, both blade kind of cold, what we call cold weapon, and then fire weaponry,
Yes. Yeah.
which was very a surprise to you as well, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I knew how to use all those weapons without physically going out and training. Like I never had to physically go out and train to
uh,
get taught how to use them. I went into the course, I passed the written part, I passed the physically how do you use these things, and was given the license for the firearms. For swords, you don't
but
need that.
yeah, but you don't remember. You probably received the training, but you don't remember, going on missions like assassinations or
No,
anything like that.
no, no, I don't
Okay.
remember. Although in the channeling, it's clearly said that I was trained to kill and
Okay.
infiltrate various groups and get to influence them to do what I wanted, to start riots, and that's what my higher self said. Now I don't remember
Right.
killing anybody, or maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't have the memory, the physical memories of doing that.
As I'm listening to you, I have this. I was just thinking about it on the back of my mind. It seems like they've been using you for all these different capacities, but there is no like, to me, there is no like coherent logic in HR sense to use you. Okay, if you were, for example, doing some stuff on linguistics and you had some contact with a Neuralink implants and you knew how that worked because you spent a good 14 years doing that, you probably knew the system very well. They would put you into designing of these things, given all your additional skills and abilities and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But then they would put you in a laboratory, which is completely probably a lower level kind of capacity, I would assume. I don't know.
Well,
Uh,
the thing is,
yeah.
the work that they put you in, it could be in a higher level or a lower level.
Uh-huh.
It to them, it's like they stick you where they think you do best. It could be in a higher
Okay.
capacity or it could be in a lower capacity.
Uh-huh.
If you
But
have,
probably what's considered on Earth as a lower capacity is not the same there
yeah,
because, they know why they use you for this matter because you have some additional, 4D vision skills that others don't. So you're probably good at that.
And in my 3D human capacity, I studied alternative medicine. I studied naturopathic medicine. I studied crystal healing, Reiki, shamanism, magic. Like,
Right.
if it interests me, I'll study it and I'll get to know it pretty well and do it well.
Yeah.
So
So,
medical stuff to me is very interesting. I took a small course in how to read MRIs online for free. I found a course how to interpret your own MRI.
MRIs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I requisitioned my own brain scans, like specifically ordered what I wanted, because my neurologist was not helping me. Like I did a medical intuitive scan on myself, and I discovered there's something in my head, in my brain, that is not right. I knew it was not a tumor, but it was something else. So I requisitioned the MRI scans, and I looked at the scans, and there was a lesion in the white matter of my brain, left side of my brain. Because I couldn't remember things, I couldn't function correctly. So I'm like, there's something going on here. Medically, I studied it myself so I can interpret their MRI easily. It's like medical knowledge is just easy for me to assimilate and understand.
Yeah, that also tells about the level of qualification of some doctors, probably.
Yeah, and I came in with my own MRI scans and I said, look, these migraines are because of this, so in the nothing you'll ever give me will work for me because it never has and never will. So I need some accommodation because I'm light sensitive, that's why I had these MRIs done.
Okay.
I paid for it myself. I requisitioned them myself so I could get exactly what I wanted to see in the MRI.
Yep. Speaking of that, what was the point or the trigger maybe for the memories to come back? Because I know that others have had that after the MRI scan of their head. And
Well,
what was it for you?
removing the nanonite technology from my uterus. The trigger
Okay.
was 29 when I got the uterus and the cervix removed. When the nanites were gone, the memories started, like I started taking the shamanism and just suddenly floodgates opened up.
So it was like a I don't know, synchronized kind of events.
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah.
Okay.
I started feeling more healthier, and and I also had various ET contact experiences while I was growing up. So, and the Nordic one sticks out the most. That came first, and then the secret space program stuff came after. And when the uterus and the cervix were gone, the nanites were gone, I was no longer bleeding out and healthy. This all came out.
Okay.
That
Wow.
was basically the floodgates opening up.
Right. Wow. That's interesting because that was actually also serving as a blocker for memory, but
Yes.
some people who blank slated you maybe didn't realize that
Probably
you could
not.
go as far.
Yeah, if I'm healthier and I have an interest in past life regression and hypnosis. And I want I could feel that something was missing from my memories. I could sort of remember the ET contacts, but I felt like something else was missing and it was really wrong with me. Like half of my life was missing. It was gone. Something was gone. Was taken away from me. That's why I took the shamanism to learn to get my memories back, and it just
Right. And that was what year?
that was about almost 3 years ago now.
Oh, that's 2014 then.
I
That's when it happened.
I had my uterus removed December 10th, 2014, and about December 20th is when I started working with my shaman teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I couldn't find a good shaman teacher anywhere in South Surrey. And I found him in Coquitlam. And I said, look, I'm not feeling well. Like, I can't go to you. Can you come to me? And he came to me and he worked with me. I met him when it was dark at 7 p.m. at night. His car door wouldn't open. He got a little bit lost near my house. It was dark. And I opened the car door for him. I met him. He called me and he's like, I'm so sorry to call you. Can you walk out, please? Can you help me? My car door isn't opening. And I'm a bit lost. So that, it's just, I went out. I felt like he was a good person because we talked on the phone. He's a really nice guy, Leonard Howe.
So basically, what did he do to you that kind of induced the memory recall?
What induced the memory when I started learning past life regression of how to go into your past lives, how to do basic hypnosis, but in a respectful, more of a shamanic way than straight up hypnosis, how to incorporate a bit of both together, and also to do soul retrieval, to amalgamate missing pieces of your soul back together. Because if something traumatic happens to you, you need to re-amalgamate it. And the secret space program stuff was the really traumatic stuff that was missing, that needed to be reintegrated with the soul aspect of me, of what this is right now.
Okay. And that's when it happened, basically. So that makes it 2015 even, right? When it all came out.
Yeah. Well, until 2016, because I almost took I took 3 levels of Native American shamanism. So when I finished in 2016, I was also learning Wicca magic at the time and learning how to do manifestation work and how to heal myself with herbs and crystals. So that also, the manifestation to know what happened to me, to get all of my memories back, the magic helped with that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, whatever the consciousness needs to, as a prop, assisting you to basically make the contact with, that stuff behind the veil. You do a ritual or a prayer or whatever it is to, connect your mind to that, and then it becomes your reality. You kind of bring it here.
Basically, it wasn't even a ritual or a prayer. It was learning candle magic, crystals, spell work. A little bit of that, and to work with natural things in nature, to combine things from nature and to manifest with that what you wanted to get from your mind and your soul. Right. The nature connection.
It's basically working with the natural energy to that way.
Yeah.
It's not really not different from what people from the pharmacology originally was, when you would use natural herbs to basically use those. People would know what energies were attributed to plants, and they would mix them together and take them in. But that would be a more crude approach as opposed to more refined, I guess. Right?
Leonard Howe, he's the Métis Native American shaman. He said, we are not going to ingest herbs. We are not going to use ayahuasca. We're not going to use LCD or any. You are not to ingest any herb. You are to learn to retrieve your memories and to go on journeying, shamanic journeying, through learning past life retrieval techniques. Soul retrieval, like learning energetically how to do it. Not through pharmacology of herbology.
Yeah.
Energy
but that
work.
was, I think, the pharmacology was born after people lost the ability to understand how that works energetically.
True.
All those cruder things were introduced so they could help you, and then it ended up to be what we have the pharmaceutical industry, which is completely off tracks with that.
It's been perverted. Today's medicine is so toxic. It's been perverted. It's not even the herbs, the natural herbs of the past.
Sure.
And even when I was studying the Wicca magic, I would not ingest the herbs. I would put the herbs in candles with essential oils, and I would do manifestation work with spells and symbols on the candle, and it would help me to trigger memories that way as well.
Yeah. Okay, so 2015, you started remembering, and did you decide to come out publicly like at once, or? Was there a period when you probably that's what I asked Tony Rodriguez as well. Was there a denial period when you said, no, 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 this must have been some dream of some past life or whatever. It didn't happen in this life. Did you have any of that?
No, no. I
Okay.
started with Messages from a Star Traveler.
Uh-huh.
That's the
Okay.
website I started with, sharing my extraterrestrial contact experiences. Then later
Uh-huh.
on in the year, I added the secret space program stuff from
Uh-huh.
my past life retrieval / hypnosis methods of remembering this.
Yeah.
That's how I came out as the Star Traveler on Messages from a Star Traveler. And then I
Uh-huh.
started doing interviews, and I came out with my own name for the secret space
Uh-huh.
program stuff. And then I retracted my name because I
Uh-huh.
had a lot of people asking me for psychic services, healing
Uh-huh.
services,
Right.
and I tried doing that a little bit, and just doesn't feel right to me because it's
Uh-huh.
too much. Like, I had a day job in research and stuff, so working for a university, so it was hard balancing two jobs. So I just removed my name, removed my
Okay.
first and last name, and I go by Ileana the Star Traveler.
Okay. What is your day job now? Do you have one?
I work in a university. I don't want to really talk
Uh-huh.
about my day job. It's not really
Okay.
relevant. It's in research.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool.
Because I never, the thing is, I never really talk about who I work for.
Uh,
That's the day
uh,
job, and it's outside, the employer is outside of this. Because employers
right.
generally don't really take well to you mentioning them in interviews. There could be repercussions for
Okay.
that. There can
Yeah.
be
Right.
repercussions, so I never mention the employer in any of my interviews.
Yep. And given your background, yeah, I would imagine so.
Even in a normal
Right.
interview where you're talking about healing and stuff, I just don't mention the
Uh,
employer because sometimes the employer does not want to be associated with what you do outside of the job. They just don't want to be
uh,
associated with the paranormal, with whatever. They just don't. You don't mention your employer, period. That's what I
yep.
was, that's what I've intuitively always known. So I never
Uh,
mentioned my employer.
okay. Yeah, I would like to, as we are, about to wrap it up here soon, I would like to talk to you about the disclosure process, as you see it. I mean, if you were, because I am there are 16 personality types, and there are different like groups there, and there are different types. So I'm a mediator type, so I can't help it but when I talk to people like you and then go back into the 3D world, can't help it to stand in the middle point and try to mediate and reconcile the two sides. So I've always been interested in that. And I guess my job, I used to be an interpreter and done a lot of mediation myself, apart from that. So I'm always interested in how this disclosure process goes, between the experiencers, the hardcore, don't mind me doing that. The hardcore people who experience a lot of intense stuff and real stuff and, the high tech and space and all that, ET reality, and the everyday public, and how it all comes together. And one of the things that I did when I, decided to talk to you was I watched your video called Experiencers Speak. How does it all come together? And I heard your heart's cry there.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself that maybe you shouldn't have done it because it was almost like you were trying to, maybe explain yourself. But then I thought that's the mission I'm upon as well. Not to explain yourself or prove anything, but just to sort of reconcile the two sides. So objectively, what do you see as the timeline for disclosure? Like ideally, if you were the person, for example, in charge, just imagine you were a leader of a country or of a coalition that would, roadmap those things and say, okay, we've been there, we've had all these things for a long time hidden from the public, and we know where the public is with this. All they know is, most of what they know is the movies and stuff, those things. As far as the timeline goes and the roadmap for the disclosure goes, how would you do that if that was your capacity right now?
So, which country do I think would do it first? Disclose? Is that one of your
If
questions?
you were say a leader of a coalition of whatever G7 G8 the Earth Alliance, the
Russia.
if you were to say, okay, how many years do we need to drag, not to drag, but to how many years do you think the public would need organically, naturally, I mean, realistically to take it all in?
I'd say by 2030 probably, because that's when they,
20, 30 years?
yeah,
Okay,
because that's when they're planning to go to Mars. And I think if
right.
there was a country to do it, it would be Russia first.
Okay, why is that?
Well, they have a prominent secret space program. Russia has a prominent one of their own in space. And
Okay.
right now, I think they're more progressively forward because they're banning GMOs. They're
Uh-huh.
doing things trying to live on a healthier life. And Putin was not baited by Trump or, to start a war. So what?
Uh-huh.
Trump, bombed Syria's whatever airport or whatnot.
So you see Russia as being spearheading
Yes,
that movement,
yes, I
basically.
do.
Okay, and 2030 as being the year to
Possibly,
basically.
yeah. It's hard really
Okay.
to put a firm date on disclosure. It's hard. Everybody asks this question, everybody. It's hard, but
Yeah.
I'd say 2030, 2040, because
Uh-huh.
we need to do space exploration. We've already done space exploration with the secret
Uh-huh.
programs. But
Right.
Elon Musk is going to Mars. SpaceX is going to
Right.
Mars by 2030s. NASA is along with that. It's been approved.
Uh-huh.
Trump has done. He approved that recent order, whatever it was, to form this whatever something space something.
An organization. Yeah, but I mean, is this where you are at also in your mind? I mean, that's what I was asking. Like, not what's going on in the world necessarily, but if you were to decide, say, okay, what year and how we would come to that,
I would
you would do it the same way in 2030
no,
around that time?
no. I do it today. I want it
Okay,
today.
you would do it today.
If
Okay.
it was just my perspective, I'd have it today.
So you would have that out on the TV,
Yeah,
full scale, like everything.
yeah. I'd want it out today. I always want it out
Okay.
today. I always want the latest knowledge I have, the information I have.
Right.
If I could put it out today, I'll put it out today. That's my mentality
Right.
for,
Okay.
I don't like secrets. I don't like lies. And all the governments have lied to us for almost 100 years or more.
Right.
Well, they
So,
lied to us
but
longer.
yeah, but where I'm going with this is actually it wasn't a trap, but necessarily. But what I was going with this is that there's a huge gap between the experiencers and people like me who are maybe in the middle somewhere,
Hmm.
who are aware of these things that maybe not necessarily experience them, and the general public who realistically, energetically speaking, are not able to ingest. For example, as Adronis channel by Brett Johnson said that to think that the general public can accept the fact that there are human and non-human ETs out there is like making a baby eat a prime rib steak. So
Go slowly.
realistically, we're what?
With the people that are not ready to accept that there's
Sure.
ETs with us, ask them the following question. Do you believe
No.
that there could be life on other planets? Start with something
Yeah.
simple. Just, you know,
Right.
when a baby is
Yeah.
learning to
Yeah.
walk, baby
But
steps.
if it was, yeah, that's what I'm asking. If it was in your power to say, okay, full on, we talk about everybody, reptilians, whatever, the bases on Mars, the reptilians, the Nazis too,
I,
that's one of the
I talk
things.
about them all the time.
Right,
I
right.
don't,
But I mean, for the general public, I mean, you know how that works, right? People do not bump into information, what the information that they are not attracted to
yeah,
on some levels.
baby,
So you'll be only watched by so many people at once, and maybe the number will grow as the years go by, but not everybody, right? But if it was in your power, you would just put it
yeah,
all on TV right
yeah,
then.
I would put it out on TV, sure.
Okay.
For me, it's not about fame. It's not about popularity. It's just about disclosing the truth.
Yeah, but I mean the responsibility factor of it.
I do it
How
if
would the
if
people
if
take it?
if if I was offered to go on TV and disclose all of it, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Would people believe me? That's another issue because people always look for signs, for proof. Everybody looks for
Uh-huh.
proof. Now I
Yeah.
have images of different craft visiting me and monitoring me,
Uh-huh.
and I've put that out. That's part of my
Yeah.
proof.
Yeah.
It's like if you can find a comparative to compare it to use an analogy, do it. Because that will
Yeah.
make it easier for someone to understand. And for some, it's baby steps. The non believers, you start by asking them, do you think that there could be possibly life on other planets?
That's right. But yeah, back to the question. If you were the government that could, disclose all right now, it's
Russia.
one thing when you talk about it, you would still do it, right?
I'd still do
As
it.
a, as a
Hey,
government.
as a government, I think Russia will do it.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
Because they're more forward thinking than others. The US is still like, we put an embargo on the secret, so we can't be the ones to
Oh,
do
yeah,
this.
I think it's because all the secret factions there are so many, there are too many in the Western world right
Yeah.
now that there is so much overlap of interests and stories and timelines and everything that it's very complicated. And maybe for us, I don't know what we have, by the way, you could tell me. But I think we've had it more in a more simpler fashion. If there was and I believe there is a secret space program in Russia, I think it was not as, you know, diverse, where, as, Randy Kramer said, 300 ET races working with 200 intelligence agencies, in the Western world, which makes it a crazy kind of combination. We probably had it very in a simpler way, and when we connected with, the BRICS alliance with the Chinese and others, we probably made it to a more sound, playing field than
Yeah.
saying, okay, we go step by step.
Yeah.
So how do you know? Do you know for sure that Russia has a secret space program? Have you seen any Russian people or anything that would point out like a flag to
No,
that?
no, I haven't, but it's
No.
just a feeling that they have space stations of their own.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just a feeling. And I don't know why Russia is just a feeling that I have.
Okay.
And I
So you
go,
don't know.
I
You don't know
don't,
for sure.
I don't know for sure. I know they have a space program because
Yeah.
why wouldn't they? Why
Yeah,
wouldn't
sure.
they?
Sure.
So I think it's more simplified that they have space stations of their own. They're not at the level like interplanetary conglomerate where they have a bunch of bases everywhere
Bases. Okay.
on the moon and on
So you don't
Mars.
believe there are actually bases, like national bases, like a Russian base or Chinese base somewhere on Mars?
I think it's multicultural.
Okay.
I think it's multicultural because they have to work together in order to build out stuff. If it was just one nation,
Right.
one program, it's not so easy to build things. Like what happened to the Germans? When they went out to Mars, they failed in the beginning because they didn't work with the US.
Uh-huh.
And when the US joined,
Right.
they suddenly had these lovely bases together.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
the US has worked with Germany closely on building bases.
Uh-huh.
So I think Russia has their own space stations.
Okay, at least,
Yeah,
right?
at least that. Yeah, and some craft as well.
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. Yeah, but that would mean that they had to, somehow work with, I mean, including, the USA is one thing, but all the other countries that, including those countries that were fighting the Nazis during the war, probably would have to at least put up with the Germans being out there. Not
Yeah.
Germans, but the Nazi faction, basically,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they had to put up with it. Sputnik was the first to launch, first satellite. The Russians did that. So they must have.
That's officially, right?
Yeah, officially. So unofficially, they must have already had something out in space more advanced
Right.
than Sputnik, like their own space stations.
Right.
The ISS,
Yeah, or some, yeah.
the ISS is a joke. International Space Station is a bunch of tin can, tin foil floating out in space. That's a joke. That's not the real stuff. That's the advanced. It's a joke. It's the front.
But
Front.
for the ISS, for example, for the people who only know about the ISS and Elon Musk's plans to go to Mars. So for the ISS, people who are on board of ISS, do you think they know of any of that stuff, or is it all cloaked? Like when there is a ship passing by, they have no idea. It's all cloaked there.
It's all cloaked. If it accidentally decloaks for some reason, if the cloaking is malfunctioning, then they'll see it. The astronaut.
Then they'll see it.
Yeah, and I think they've been briefed that there are UFOs, unidentified craft. We don't know what it is precisely, but it's out there. I think they have the general gist of understanding that UFOs exist. There might be life on other planets. There might be some military programs out in space. They have like a general concept of understanding.
But if you were if there was like a secret space program in Russia, for example, and the cosmonauts wouldn't know about it, then what level and what organization would run that?
I think the cosmonauts that are in the secret space program on those space stations are separate from the ISS. They're separate from that.
Okay.
They're on a higher level above the ISS because they have their own space stations that can be cloaked.
Yep. Wow.
That's how I would think it works, because it's on a need to know. It's degrees of levels on a need to know. If you don't need to know, you don't. Right. If you need to know basics, you will. Just enough so you keep your mouth shut.
It would seem that, when you're out there in space, there are basically no secrets, because you see everything, right? So
Not
you
really.
basically see have a 360 degree view of everything. So what people are having a hard time with is for example saying, okay, there is a fleet of the Solar Warden craft out there. There is a dark fleet. There is all kinds of ETs going back and forth. And as Randy Kramer said, they would meet a ship escorted to Earth and from Earth on a daily basis. And
it's cloaked.
It's all cloaked.
Yeah,
so they're all cloaked there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cloaked because there's even ships flying in Earth orbit. ET ships that are cloaked. If they don't want you to see it, you won't. You just won't see it with radar. You won't see it with scanners. You won't see it with your eyes, because it's advanced ET technology. It's advanced secret space program technology. If they're on that level, they can cloak it and hide it from you, even out in space, where you have your 360 degree view of everything. Unless there's a cloaking malfunction and it accidentally decloaks in front of you, you won't know. You won't see and know it. It's secret.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's actually logical. If they don't...
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but that's the most amazing thing of all, because you can talk about it, but you can't actually see it. And I think we're in an amazing time when we can, without knowing for sure, without having the direct, visual, perceptual knowledge of something, we can not only wonder about things, but we can actually explore it inside, like from the intuitive part of us, the spiritual part of us. Because what's happening now with the disclosure is that people are coming out with all this information, but all these researchers, people who think they're researching stuff in the UFO community, they are screaming, for proof and saying, guys, we would like to, as that panel, the MUFON panel, we would like to believe you, but just give us some proof, anything, a document, a person, any kind of physical object or anything that you could, a picture.
I have pictures
that you could present. That you could present.
I can.
Yeah, but what's happening is that there is not enough. First of all, people are used to being told by the government, by the science community, and by their neighbors by the news, the evening news, what's going on, and they wouldn't accept anything that's from outside of that. And second of all, people are very used to the material 3D evidence and proof kind of thing. So when those two are out, then on the table, you basically are left with nothing. So people are screaming for more proof, please. And, I see people screaming on forums and comments and saying, I can't believe this girl, or I can't believe this guy, or I can't believe this is happening because there is no proof. Come on, guys. This is all, fantasies. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I've had Triangular Craft monitoring me.
Right.
And I've seen them.
We should put up on
yeah,
YouTube.
I've seen them hovering over my house. Yeah. So what did I do? I took a picture, and there was this triangle, silver blue triangle, hovering above the treetops of my house. So that's my proof. You could say that I faked it, that I did light photography, that I drew it with a paintbrush or something in Photoshop. I did none of the above. I took some weird ass pictures.
Yeah.
Of a phenomenon that's not logical. It's not supposed to be there in my photo, but it is. And I did nothing to alter it because it is what it is. It was a weird ass triangle floating above in the treetops. Yeah. That's the best way I can describe it. And I think it's a TR3B or something higher above that model of a craft that's been engineered by the military-industrial complex, like Lockheed Martin, because they're capable of it. They've done it. And that's the information the researchers put together. Yeah. I didn't put that info together. Yeah. So if you don't believe that these pictures that I took are real, I really don't care. It's my evidence. And I recommend this to everyone. If something is weird or paranormal happening near you and you can see phenomenon, take a picture of it. Just have a picture.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but that's what I was saying. It's interesting that we have a chance. This is I believe this is a very short period that we are living in before stuff is disclosed.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe 10 years, 15 years, who knows?
Yeah.
And this is the time when we can actually look into ourselves and find not only what's out there, which is probably secondary to what's in here, we're all here on Earth, basically the human truth and the truth that we know there is. And I think that it's not an accident, cosmically, if you will, that you guys, all the experiencers, have these memories, but you have no physical proof, so that you have to still do this inner work. And decide for yourself. And that's what actually is going on with other people who are listening also. Yeah. Decide for yourself whether you want to believe it or not. And if you are, then your work, then because you want to believe this is true, then there are so many other things that have to be true about you also for that to be true. And that is the journey we're upon right now. Yeah. That's, I think, the most amazing. Actually, the most amazing positive side of it.
Yeah, and I have some medical proof that something weird has happened to me. I have too much medical records to say, nay, that never happened to you because...
Yeah, but that's for you. I mean, most people will not probably research that, to find out. But that's for you to...
I medically went and probed myself from all angles and aspects to see what was medically wrong to explain the weird symptoms of whatever I had. And going back through the memory and looking at what the reptiles did and what the programs did, it's easy to put 1 and 2 together, to have 1 and 1 to put 2, to have that equals to 2. Other people and experiencers, SSP experiencers and ET experiencers have said they've had some weird ailments, medical symptoms that they couldn't explain, their doctor couldn't fix. Like, why in the world do you have that? And they have the memories of the ET abductions, the ET contact, the secret space program being in service or being an asset, and weird stuff genetically and medically being done to you. And that causes the weakness, the ailment, the whatever.
Yeah.
I just have I have stacks of medical reports to say, what is this? Yeah. So that's my evidence. The photos of the ships are my evidence. Right. So if you say that's not evidence to you, that's fine. It's evidence to me.
Yeah. But I think we shouldn't really care for...
No, we don't. We shouldn't.
We shouldn't really care for really trying to find proof.
No.
Only, unless it it has any relevance to you personally, because it will not, the proof, whatever you find, will not, serve anyone in that way.
No.
Because that's what I think we are in right now. The proof is not going to serve people. Whatever you show them, tell them, will not
No.
serve. They have to look
Yeah.
into themselves and decide for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are your own proof in what happened to you. That's all that really matters in that. It's you do your inner work and you just try your best to work on your soul level, and that's to live and to experience and to find your own truth.
Yep.
And not care what others think about you.
And that's a journey on its own, right?
Yeah, it is. At this point, I really don't care what you or anybody else thinks of me. I'll put out what I put out, what I think is relevant to me and might interest others in information. And if people think it's hogwash and fluff and whatnot, whatever. Up to everyone to make up their own decisions, what they want to see or do or experience. Simple as that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ileana. This was really great. And maybe you can tell how people can find you online, because I know you have a website and a YouTube channel.
The website is Messages from a Star Traveler. And the YouTube channel is Awakening Cosmic Reality Show. You can just type in either, and easy to find online.
Right. And you've been putting a lot of videos out there for people to see.
Well, I put it out as a historical archive. I don't care how many people see it, when or why. I just put it out there because I think it's historical archival material. That's all I'm doing and why I put it out.
All right. Cool. If you don't mind, we might maybe touch base later and see if we can do another session.
Sure.
I know that you're busy with a lot of interviews, so I'll have to kind of schedule beforehand. But for today, this is really great.
Yeah.
You have a good weekend, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah. So thank you, and have a good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.